Hey everybody, welcome to this issue of Staffing Monthly. And for this sales training session that I want to provide, I want to talk about something that is becoming more and more essential to sales. And I see a lot of salespeople actually maybe overlooking the step or not fully engaging in one particular area. And I think it actually has monumental impact. And this is something that is a really simple technique. It is something that anybody can learn that will have an amazing impact, and not only being able to acquire more clients, but also acquire clients at better markups. So if you're in a situation where you feel like sales maybe not be performing the way that you want to, or you feel like you need to go out and get more customers, or maybe you feel like there's greater resistance to certain prices than you've seen in the past, and clients are just expecting lower and lower markups, and you think that maybe it's an economic condition that's driving this down, then I want you to really pay attention to what I'm going to share in this. And this actually comes out of my value selling framework that I teach. And just to kind of set the table for it, when we're going in to teach value selling, we try to simplify things for the salesperson. We want to give them a very simple framework that they can follow. And really, when it comes down to acquiring a new customer, regardless of industry or size or any of that, there's really three simple questions that the salesperson needs to really be able to identify by working through the sales meeting with the prospect. And the first one is there a problem, right? Like, is there a problem that your prospect is actually facing? Obviously, if they don't have a problem as it relates to staffing, then there's no need, right? And there's very low chance that you'll actually sell them on anything. Second question is, how important is the problem to solve? Is it worth solving, right? And you want to dig in this one and figure out, like, why is it worth solving? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a small problem. It's just not worth making an investment into staffing or recruiting. Maybe it's a big problem, and you really want to understand, like, what is the impact of that big problem, and why is it worth solving, or is it worth solving? And the third question is can I solve it, right? And this is if the prospect has a problem and it's worth solving, but it's not really in your sweet spot, or it's not something that you're best equipped to solve, it's important just to acknowledge that. Because if you actually have the first two and you're not the best fit, but you take the business, you're really just setting up for a poor customer experience, and really some frustrated recruiters that are going to be trying to work on that, work on that client, work on those orders and filling it, when it might not be really in your sweet spot as a company to be able to fill this. So that's really the framework that I want you to be thinking about, as far as, like, how do we identify these questions? Is there a problem? Is it worth solving? And can I solve it? Now, when it comes to value selling, it's also really, really important to understand that our clients, they don't actually buy our services. They actually buy what our service does for them, right? Like, they have, they're a business and they're operating, and they have clients that they have to serve or build a product for, or whatever it might be. And they're trying to solve that problem. And a lot of times the solution to their problem is people. And that's really what we provide, is we provide, qualified people to do a good job. But it's not the recruiting service. It's not the staffing or payroll service. It's not even the person. It's the output of the person that we're putting on assignment, on contract, or directly placing with our clients that our clients are buying. So you have to think about, like, that's the premise of value, and really the value of what that person provides for the organization is how they will view the value of your solution, right? So if you are a staffing agency and you provide people that solve complex problems and they offer tremendous upside value to your client organizations, there is a good chance that your client will view that as essential, and they'll pay a fair and reasonable price for that service, and you won't be feeling like this commoditization effect, right? So on the flip side, if you are staffing, maybe more entry-level people or lower skilled people, where the output of those people for your client might not be as much of a valuable contribution to their organization, it might be natural for them to look to down cost there, or push back on your pricing, because they're really looking at the output of the people you're providing in relation to the value they provide against the cost, right? That ROI, return on investment. And that's really where that value is. And ultimately, when I break it down in the simplest terms, value is just the gain that somebody gets for something that they acquire, right? Above and beyond the cost to acquire it. So if you're if your person that you're sending to them costs them $30 per hour as a bill rate, like they obviously that person has to be contributing enough value to the organization to be a multitude of that. Like if they're only contributing $35 of value, it's probably not worth it, right? However, if what they produce, if their work product at the client location is, $300 an hour, and there's a 10x, that's a good investment. And ultimately, the gain or the value that the client is getting there might be $270 an hour in that example, right? So that's the value. So if we just put these two things together, and then I'm going to talk about a specific scenario, but if we put these two things together, is there a problem? Is it worth solving, which speaks to the value, and can I solve it? And then understanding that the value is really the gain that your client is going to get based on the output of the people that you place there, right? Understanding those two concepts. And again, I go much deeper in the value selling series that we teach, but outside of that, I'm often reminded when I'm doing role practice or leading sales training sessions, of some of the most common objectives that we hear or objections that we hear. And when we go into a sales meeting, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with some of the other agencies out there. And it becomes fairly easy to sell against your competitors because at some point or another, every staffing agency will fall short and they will let the client down, right? Even you. So when you're doing this, how that materializes in the sales meeting is the prospect is going to say something like, well, I'm just not happy with the quality of the people that this other agency is sending me, right? We hear that. And as salespeople, we get super excited. And what happens is that creates this trigger to brag about our agency because we think that's our in. So most commonly, like 80+% of salespeople probably fall into this particular trap of when they hear that we're not happy with the quality, they most commonly respond with like, thank you for sharing that. We take great pride at ABC Staffing Agency, and this is all the stuff that we do. We actually do this vetting and this background check and this assessment test and all of this screening and vetting and high touch interviews and all of this stuff to make sure that we're delivering you great quality. So I can promise you that quality will not be an issue if you're working with us, right? Now, here's why that's a trap, and it's the wrong trigger. And you need to rewire yourself based on that trigger word of, poor quality from your competitor to respond in a different way. But first, let me explain to you why that's a trap. Is that one, the salesperson that sold them from the other agency to do business probably told them something similar, that they wouldn't have to worry about quality. So they've already been told that once. So they're naturally going to be skeptical or a little bit reluctant just to believe you because you're another salesperson for another agency that is telling them that quality is essential and you can deliver on that. So it's naturally going to be met with some skepticism, right? The second piece is you don't even fully understand yet what they mean by quality. Quality is a very subjective term where companies that are best in class do a great job of objectively defining it and measuring it, right? So what I want you to do is when you're in a sales meeting or when your salesperson is in a sales meeting, I want you to be on guard for that phrase. We're not happy with the quality of the candidates that we're getting from their current supplier, right? When you hear that, you won't hear it every time, but sometimes you're going to hear that one come up. I want you to take a pause and think, okay, this is interesting. They have a quality issue. And, and sit there, and there's a couple techniques you can do. You could do mirroring. You could just, when you hear that phrase, we're not happy with the quality of the people that the other agency is sending, the quality of the people, right? That mirroring technique. You just sort of use that quality of the people with that kind of upward inflection to where it's going to basically motivate them or encourage the prospect to elaborate more and start talking about, well, yeah, we have people that operate this very specific type of equipment, and we require that everybody comes in has, not only do they have experience in training on this piece of equipment, but they actually pass an assessment test. And it just seems like that's not happening, and then you dig in a little deeper. Really? Well, how can you tell that's not happening? Oh, because the people, when they get there, they don't know how to operate this. They tell us that they've never actually worked in this environment, never used this piece of equipment. They tell us that they've never taken any sort of assessment test that we thought everyone was being screened with. Interesting. And how does that translate to the work product? Like, is the product work? Is their production, worse, or is it workable? Can you work with it? No, we can't work with it. The people are not safe to operate the equipment. We can't put them on it. They can't produce what we need them to do, and it ultimately becomes a complete waste of money, Really, that sounds pretty frustrating, right? Now you have a better understanding of, is the problem we're solving. If they're already attempting to solve it with another agency and they're not satisfied with the quality, but now when you understand that, the depth of the quality issue that they're talking about, you can actually frame your presentation against that. So when you're talking about the service you provide and all of that bragging, quality stuff that you do that's different than your competitor, you can actually make the specific end result of that process the problem, the quality issue that your prospect's trying to solve. So it's like, hey, well, we actually do this. We actually have a process in our system that we'll set up for you. It will literally not allow us to submit anybody to you unless they've taken this assessment test, and actually pass a certain score. I can even set up automations to send you the scores if you want that, if you need that level of verification or validation that it's been done. We can actually set up these toll gates to make sure that all of these things are done before we place somebody on assignment here. So our recruiters literally will not be able to actually send you just bodies. And that's one way that we can actually get you the people that can operate this specific type of equipment, that can actually, that have worked in this environment and then actually have a qualifying score with this assessment test. If we could deliver that type of quality to you, would it be worth giving our organization a try, right? That's a much better framing of how to solve their specific problem, the one that's causing the most pain point to them, than just saying, hey, we provide better quality. Does that make sense? Is that like hitting right? So obviously I talked about the mirroring technique that you can use. It's very effective. When someone says, hey, we're not happy with the quality of the candidates that our other agency is sending us, not happy with the quality of the people, and that'll elaborate. Then obviously you can just go into a reverse or a question. You could do it the other way. You don't have to mirror if that's not your comfort style. You can just say, interesting. You mentioned that you're not happy with the quality. What is it about the candidate and the lack of quality that you're seeing that you're concerned with? Right. And they might tell you all the same stuff. And those are two techniques that I want to tell you that right there, most salespeople miss. As soon as they hear they're not happy with the quality of the person, they prematurely present their solution, and because they don't have that next one or two layers of depth of knowledge about the situation or the true needs of the prospect, they're forced to present a more generalized sales approach. And generalists are commoditized. Generalists are price compressed. Okay. When you actually work this into your process and you gain better understanding of your prospect situation and the challenges they're facing and what they're truly trying to solve for and what their pain points really are, down to a granular depth level, you're going to be viewed as the expert, and experts get paid. Okay. So with that, I just want to share that. I'm seeing that a lot lately, and I just hope that you're not falling into that trap or you're not doing that. So now I want you to kind of rewire your radar, rewire your brain a little bit here. And when you hear that particular objection or statement, that's I'm not happy with the quality, don't think, oh, this is my opportunity to present. I want you to think, okay, they mentioned there's a quality issue. I need to learn more about that before I can actually see if our solution is a match, right? Which falls to that, am I a fit? Can I solve the problem piece of it? So if you use that framework to figure out, do they have a problem? Is it worth solving? And can I solve it? I think that will help you go a lot further in the sales process. You will get more customers and you will get better prices, resulting in better margins. So with that, happy selling. Until next time.